Hi everyone. We took a little break from recording TechMates episodes because we were very busy with Auckland Startup Week and everything going on in New Zealand. But we are trying to do something different today where we'll bring you 5 highlights from previous episodes from founders that we've interviewed. They talk about their struggles, how to make enterprise sales work, how to prototype, how to become a founder, how to think about becoming a founder. Some really interesting insights in these conversations, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. Thank you.
This is Mark Prutkowski, and welcome to the TechMates podcast, where my partner Henrik and I explore how Kiwi and Aussie founders are reshaping the future and what sets them apart. Henrik and I have been part of successful companies in Silicon Valley and Europe, and now bring that expertise to partner with entrepreneurs in Australasia. By sharing the personal stories of successful Kiwi and Aussie founders and how they got here, we hope to inspire you to dream big. This is TechMates, bringing an outsider's perspective to the stories of those daring to disrupt down under. Let's dive in.
When you get started and you try to work with these really old, really big organizations, how do you start, right? There's different ways into these organizations, right? They have all these kind of innovation programs, and you might be able to kind of speak to some of the C-level. What was your kind of way in to get started on that journey?
We still learn all the time as well about and what I think you're referring to is kind of enterprise infiltration.
Yeah.
And enterprise sales, right? There is a dark art of trickiness. It's a massive combination of just being part of their consideration set, making sure that the stories you're telling in public are solving the problems that they have, and it takes you a while to figure that out. And then making sure, as you're finding those particular people, whether they be at C-suite or GM level, that you're connecting with them as much as possible. So I think over a good year and a half, we were just trying to figure out who to talk to in some of these organizations and exactly who they were, and then figuring out how do they make decisions and what's the time frame for making decisions. Things like what are their budget cycles, who are the key decision makers in those first meetings, going, well, what and how do you make decisions? And what we've learned is when engaging with the enterprise, that a lot of them will just talk about that out loud really well. And it's important to understand, because you can be talking to the person who has a delegated authority of $12, right? They can buy coffees and that's it. And you spend months and months talking to this person, and then you realize that. So we're getting way better now, walking in and kind of going, well, these are the problems we do. We solve. They're not small problems. They're a big part of your business. So are you the right person? If you're not, that's cool. We can have a beer or a coffee, but can you tell us who the right person is? And then working them through a very structured program. So without dressing it up, so everyone knows, yes, we're going to ask you for money to do some work. And the sooner you can ask them for money, the quicker you get to the outcome. Of are they actually to change? Do they have the decision-making power? Have we sold well enough for them to change? But Hendrik, it's just not simple. Every big organization has a different matrix of spider webs that make it up. And a big part of my job is figuring that out with every single one of our prospects as we work them through a sort of a process of, one, can we solve the problems they've got? As the person I'm talking to, the person that wants to solve those problems and empowered to solve those problems. And if they're not, you just know to only spend a little bit of energy on them.
Did you know that you want to do a company later, or what was your plan, I guess, in university?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always wanted to be that inventor, but an inventor isn't the same thing as actually bringing that into the world. It's just kind of having that idea or making a concept. I had quite a list of ideas that I've kind of accumulated over the years that I wanted to explore at some point. But I tried to be really logical about it and think, I basically have no money. I have no real connections or networks. So if I just try to compete with other people on these more generic ideas, someone else is probably going to beat me with more resources. So I thought, what do I know more about? Well, what am I more qualified to do than basically most people on earth? And that is my kind of unique combination of medical device, diagnostic development, and dairy farming. And so I thought, okay, this is what I can do that most other people can't. I also have a farm, 100 meters away with a herd of cows that I can start testing on, which is also something most people don't have. Yeah. So initially it was just a lot of, so we wanted to do technical and market validation was the idea for those first few months. So just taught myself a bit of electronics, and I made these prototypes. I did all this testing in the shower with all this mastitis milk that I collected from the farm, which didn't win me many brownie points at home, all this horrible rotten milk. But I eventually started to get a feel of how to make these conductivity sensors, which are actually really simple. It's just 2 stainless steel probes. So yeah, initially it was just some really basic prototypes and testing it on Dad's farm, and we saw it actually work, which was quite surprising the first time. But we tested 10 cows, I remember the day, 9 without mastitis and 1 with it, and we got it all right. And that was a very basic system, all like hand soldered together in a little lunchbox. And I used to sit in the cowshed under a raincoat with my laptop, like directly into it to see the data coming out. And so the cows would be crapping all over me, and I'll be there on my laptop.
What advice would you have for founders who are in that stage when you had Health Now, you realized Health Now wasn't the right product, or at least in the way that you were doing the buy now, pay later? And you sort of had to say, okay, this is wrong. It sucks, but it's wrong. And like, I have to go and like, but there is something here potentially. I have to, like, what advice would you give to founders who are around that space? How should they think about stuff?
I don't know, acknowledge that you're wrong. The longer that you live in, well, it's again, first principles, the longer you keep doing the wrong thing, the worse it's going to get. So like, stop doing the thing that's wrong and try and find the thing that's right. Listen to the market, because the market will provide good feedback. I mean, one of the biggest lessons I've probably learned through my startup career, or even my career in business, is that the longer you do something, and acknowledging that, like, in almost every kind of context, the longer you do something, you will continue to adapt and change and refine and all the rest of it. But more broadly, the longer you do something, the better you're going to get at it. And then the longer you're in market, the more likely bigger customers are to trust you because you've got more track record. You're not going to disappear tomorrow. All the things that time on the ball kind of teaches you. So I think whatever you need to do to not die is the thing that you should probably do, because through not dying and the process of kind of continuous learning and listening and discovery, you'll find the thing, or you'll be able to refine to the thing that actually is the thing that will be able to grow and scale. There is no business, or there's a few more recently that, and they get published. But statistically speaking, most businesses are not going to like be massive or hit the main stage in their first 12 months. Most aren't even going to hit it for the first like 7 years, right? So if you're like truly like going on the startup journey and you want to go on, and then also you should read and look at this because it's not just my views, but if you're going on the startup journey, you need to like literally acknowledge from day one that you're going on like potentially a 15-year like marathon, and through that marathon, there's going to be a whole world of ups and downs.
What was the path? So when you got to Stanford, you already knew you wanted to do startups, or you were still thinking I still might be a surgeon?
I thought I would be a surgeon still. So I didn't really sink in until a couple years in. I had to, when you switch to engineering late, there's a lot of credits you need to get. So it was tough to finish everything in time. But yeah, it was about halfway through. I started going to these entrepreneurial, I think it was called Entrepreneurial Thought Leaders Seminar is what Stanford called it. And a lot of founders, came in to talk, or just people that were involved in startups. I got into some classes that I think by happenstance had some element of entrepreneurship in them, and then really found it exciting. And I think that plus working in a medical lab one summer where I was with a bunch of residents who were just miserable all the time and sleep deprived. They were falling asleep while we're working. And yeah, it was just, it just didn't seem like the life I wanted, or the path I wanted to go down.
What was your first job?
And how long were you there? How long were you in that company?
4 years, and the company kind of went through a recap of sorts. And so I found myself, along with most of the team, too, on the outside, or without a job. The company, had a few, actually it's doing really well now after, I think it's been 22 years of operation with a few recaps or bumps along the way. But that was the first one. Then when I was there, I just thought that when things were kind of going in a not good direction, had gone to the leadership and shared my plan to turn things around, and they didn't really take it too seriously because I was like the youngest person in the company, an engineer. I wasn't like a CEO or C-level anything. I was very far from it. So then I came out of that thinking that would have worked, like my plan totally would have worked and would have saved the company. Probably delusional, but that's what I was thinking, and just said, okay, I need to be a founder now. Enough of this, enough taking orders from somebody and being at the whim of whatever they decide to see if the company succeeds or fails. And so then basically started looking for projects, and ended up through a meetup meeting the people that were my co-founders with New Rep, which was later called Avail. Yeah, it's been a long time, so I don't recall the exact points that I made exactly, but we were having trouble in some of our trials. And I think I had some ideas around the product and just some different directions we could go with what we were building. It was very product focused. That's what I was at the time. I'm still kind of product focused, but know the other sides of things now. So it was like, oh, if we do this thing or pursue this product feature, then that would be way better, and we can get around the problems that happen.
And so during your teenage years, how did you think about your career? Like, did you already know what you were going to do?
Well, I think growing up on farms, you're pretty resourceful. And I've seen my parents work really hard, self-employed. So one thing I said I was never going to do is own and run a business because it's really, really hard. And I remember, as a kid, once a month, you're laying out all the bank statements on the dining room table and you're finding receipts in the glove box and you're reconciling GST. And so you have this really, kind of grounded understanding of business as a young person. If you've got the passion and the drive and the energy, you can really control your destiny and your sort of future and fortune. But there's a roller coaster that sits alongside that or sits on that as well. And it's up and it's down and it's up and it's down. And lots of that is out of your control as well. So I love uncertainty. I think that's why startup is actually, I love it, is because I sort of love knowing that there's constant change and things that you need to maneuver and work with. I was definitely ready for something new, and I got clearer and clearer that what was important to me was making sure I was always having fun. I really felt like that's what I needed was some autonomy. So I was looking for a new role with that in mind. Like I want to feel like there's this sort of really exciting path we're heading down, and there's fun, but doesn't mean it's easy, and you're learning and you're growing other people as you go as well, and you're doing something great for customers. So all of that is what I diagnosed eventually is what I needed, as well as the fun and the connection always. I love it because of the adventure. I love it because it's lots of fun. The startup community is a really great place to be. Everyone is so generous with their time and their advice and their experiences. And I really, really love that about the community as well. So I can't see myself leaving it actually now, to be honest.
Thank you for tuning in to TechMates. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. We'll be back soon with more stories of Kiwi and Aussie founders reshaping the future and disrupting down under. Until next time, keep dreaming big and daring to disrupt.